Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Congregation of Guelph's online service. My name is Michael Gilbertson and I will be your service leader this morning. We strive to be a diverse community of mixed ages, genders, sexual orientation and race, and we welcome all who come in search of truth and meaning. Our speaker this morning is Diana Smith, and I will introduce her more fully later in the service. So we will start with a territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are on the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of New Credit First Nation of the Anishinaabe people. During our region's rich Indigenous history, these lands have been home to the Chinontan people, or Attawandaran, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Métis. We express gratitude for the sharing of these lands, and we also acknowledge the tragic history between First Peoples and newcomers. We strive to be accountable by acknowledging this history and cultivating respect in our relationships with Indigenous peoples and the land. While our Unitarian congregation of Guelph is lay-led, we are pleased to welcome within the past year our part-time minister, the Reverend Peter Bolata. Every service is unique, with different service leaders and speakers each week. Do join us a few times so that you can get a sense of what we're all about. We invite you to visit our website and sign up to receive our email announcements and to download our newsletter and literature about Unitarian Universalism. The opening words are taken from the foreword to the book, Spirituality in the 21st Century, Conversations, which was edited by John Hockheimer and Jane Fernandez-Golbra, in which the authors of the chapters in the book describe the spiritual dimensions of work being done in academic and applied fields around the world, such as adult and religious education, leadership, naturalism, healthcare, and literature. Throughout, the authors explore experiences of spirituality in the human search for meaning, belonging, suffering, healing, and forgiveness. Life is like an ongoing conversation which started before you were born, in which you get to participate and contribute while you are alive, and which continues on after you die. In their foreword to the book, the editors noted that spirituality lies at the foundation of what each and all of us most deeply believe to be true. It can be felt along the long arc of one's life, and yet it can be felt most deeply in an intense moment of crisis. It can be perceived in moments of longing, fear, love, hate, laughter, grieving, birth, death, moments of high accomplishment, depths of abject failure. It is both a thing and a process, a noun and yet a verb. It can be known, yet it cannot adequately be described. Our language is wholly incomplete to share what we feel, and yet it is something we can each embrace. It has no logic, and yet it is not illogical. One of our rituals is the lighting of the flaming chalice, which has its origins in 1940 at the offices of the Unitarian Service Committee in Lisbon, Portugal. Lisbon was the only open port in Europe and was the preferred destination for millions of refugees, many without the identification papers they needed to cross borders. So the Lisbon office concentrated especially on helping refugees obtain replacement papers. Official documents need a seal, and Hans Deutsch, an Austrian refugee artist, created the flaming chalice as the official seal. The holy oil burning in the chalice is a symbol of helpfulness and sacrifice. The chalice lighting I have chosen is by the Reverend Andy Pakula and fits today's theme of spirituality and living. Let this light remind us of the sacred flame of life that blazes within, constant yet ever-changing, burning yet never consumed. O inner light of soul and spirit, lead our minds to greater understanding, lead our hearts to love more fully, and lead our hands to create justice. Our music today is a gift from the music directors in 2 Unitarian Universalist congregations. This song, familiar to all of us, is a gift from Stephen Preece, the music director at Grand River Unitarian, and sung with Jane Lewis. We Shall Overcome is a gospel song familiar to many of us as a protest song and a key anthem in the civil rights movement. It seems fitting to sing it today. Join us wherever you are.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall all be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday.
Hi, today we're going to be reading The Runaway Hug by Nick Bland and Freya Blackwood. The Runaway Hug. "Mommy," said Lucy, "can I have a hug before I go to bed?" "Oh dear," said Mommy, "I only have one left. It's my very last hug." "Can I borrow it?" said Lucy. "I promise I'll give it back." It was long and soft, and Lucy thought it was very nice. "Thank you," said Lucy. "I'll bring it back as soon as I'm finished with it." She dashed off to find Daddy. "Daddy," said Lucy, "would you like a hug? It's the very last one, so you have to promise to give it back." "I promise," said Daddy, and Lucy gave him Mommy's very last hug. "Can I have it back?" said Lucy. Daddy picked her up and squeezed her as tight as a knot. The hug was stronger than before, but just as nice. She ran off to find the twins. "Boys," said Lucy, "would you like a hug?" "No, yuck," said the boys. "But it's the very last one," said Lucy, and before the boys could run away, she squeezed them both tightly. "Now can I have it back?" said Lucy. The boys grumbled, but they gave her a hug together. It was twice as big as before, but it was just as nice. So she skipped away to find Lily. "Would you like a hug?" said Lucy. Lily always wanted a hug. She threw open her little arms, and Lucy gave her a great big hug. Before Lucy could ask for it back, Lily giggled and hugged her again. It smelt like peanut butter, but it was just as nice as before. So she ran off to find Annie. Annie was very naughty, but Lucy loved her just the same. "Would you like a hug, Annie?" she said. Annie woofed, so Lucy leaned over and gave her a peanut buttery hug. But as soon as she let go, Annie turned and ran straight out the door, taking Mommy's very last hug with her. Lucy chased her down the hall and up the stairs and in and out of every room, but Annie was just too fast. Lucy felt terrible. She wanted to cry. She was about to go tell Mommy that she lost her last hug when Annie jumped out of nowhere. She landed right on top of Lucy and licked her all over the face. The hug was a lot more slobbery than before, but it was just as nice. By the time Lucy got to her room, Mommy was waiting. Lucy climbed into bed and gave her her last hug back to her. It was a little sleepier, but just as nice as before, and Mommy was very glad to have it back. "Can I have a kiss?" asked Lucy. "Of course you can," said Mommy. "I have plenty of those." The end.
An important tradition within our community is to take time to share our joys and concerns and listen to one another, and this tradition continues now in our online service. I will read your joys and concerns that you have sent in and will place a stone in the bowl of water, after which I will say, "We hear you." Lisa Lindsay offers a stone of sympathy for Steve and Maria in Manitoulin. Steve's mother died on the morning of June the 4th. You are in our hearts. May peace and love hold you. We hear you, Lisa. Martha offers a stone of celebration for Charlie's summer job as a curatorial assistant at a community museum in New Brunswick. We hear you, Martha. This is a stone of thanks for my fiancé's beautiful cottage beside Lake Huron. There are joys as well as concerns. The colourful warblers have passed through the garden on their spring migration, and the cardinals are nesting in the rose bushes around the house. The concern is that there seemed to be a coyote scat on the lawn, and Lake Huron exacts a large quantity of shoreline, undercutting the bank. It's an idyllic place, particularly when you watch the spectacular sunsets. And this final stone represents the unspoken joys and concerns which we hold in our hearts. I enjoy reading history, and particularly the history of civilizations. Arnold Toynbee was probably the greatest historian of civilizations. In these times of human-made crises such as COVID-19, climate change, and loss of biodiversity, we need to try to understand the principles behind civilizations, what makes them work and eventually decline and disintegrate. One of the principles identified by Arnold Toynbee was the challenges faced by different societies and the responses of those societies to those challenges. For example, the first civilization was Sumer, and its challenge was to tame the jungle swamps between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Toynbee identifies the spiritual dimension of challenges and the meaning that comes from the quest to respond. I've been extremely fortunate in the past 2 years to be included by Hannah Shell and Diana Smith in a series of dialogues with 6 leaders in Guelph who in their own ways are questing to solve the challenges that face our society. These 6 participants are not only on spiritual journeys that give meaning to their lives, but also they represent the essence of whether, as a society, we successfully respond to the numerous challenges we face today. It is my great pleasure this morning to introduce our guest speaker, Diana Smith. As a scholar practitioner working in academic, community, workplace, team, and group settings, Diana has been drawn to approaches to leadership that scale up from the personal to the systemic. Diana uses personal practice, dialogue, facilitation, and the co-creation of innovation to address complex challenges that foster the integration of the secular with the sacred in daily life. The topic of Diana's presentation this morning is, who do we choose to be for these times? Welcome, Diana Smith.
Hello. This is a unique moment in time for each of us, for our families, for our place in the world. And where do we find our ground in the midst of these volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times? What roots us? Gives meaning and purpose, causes us anger and despair. Who do we choose to be for these times? I've known I would be offering these thoughts and perspectives for months, but each week as I thought I was ready, the world showed up. COVID-19, physical isolation, death, a sense of deeper connection to each other, growing violence, anger, a sense of loss, presence of moments of joy and love. So I'm sensing a potent intensity, a growing awareness of our interdependence, overwhelm, confusion about what's ahead for each of us, for the planet, for me, in my and our bubble, with our privilege, all of it. COVID-19 has caused us all to pause. And for many of us, it's been a time to reflect on what gives individual and collective meaning and purpose. We're more aware of what matters and how we perceive what's happening. It's surfaced moments of resolve, resilience, gratitude, clarity, and also surface doubts, fears, vulnerabilities, joy and despair for human and natural systems, for others. So, how do we experience our spiritual sensibilities? The felt connection of something bigger and beyond ourselves, the sense of being part of a larger whole in our daily lives, our choices, and our actions. What emerging capacities and perspectives on consciousness ground and guide us? I'll share some personal reflections and context, and then offer the experience of others through their stories. Spirituality, as somehow distinguished from formal religion, is engaging and evolving with the environment itself. It's aligning with our intention to be of service to a larger aspiration, being with, doing the right thing, responding to what's calling, even if it's hard. Deep time, the long view. Our entry into sacred space, our spiritual grounding, is personally experienced and paradoxically shared and universal. The birth of a child, witnessing death, being in nature, the smell of a flower, a bird song, practices such as yoga, meditation, poetry, the rush of wind when walking or running or biking. A feeling that arises in a view from the top of a mountain, or a shared moment with hundreds and thousands of people in a concert or a march. Times at work when a team makes a key decision with ease and resolve. Those rituals and ceremonies that presence our whole selves in the universe. Many wisdom and faith traditions presence our interbeing. And yet this dimension of who we are is still largely divorced and separated from our lives in the economy, in business, politics, and activism, where the rational, the logical, and the reasoned continue to be the dominant mindsets. In many community and organizational contexts, the emotional and the spiritual do not have a place. It says, at a societal level, we've become unhelpfully allergic to spiritual questions, and that is where we can make the biggest contribution. Today, I'm offering a synthesis of the stories of 25 people who we invited to share their lived experience of spirituality in their lives and work, what matters, the impact it's had, and what is emerging. This is a 3-year narrative inquiry into spirituality in the 21st century. In 2017, several of us, colleagues, invited individuals to explore and dialogue how diverse worldviews of spirituality in this century ground them. We met at the Center for the Study of Religion and Society at UVic. And last fall, Hannah Schell, Michael Gilbertson, and I invited several individuals we know in Guelph to share their individual perspectives. In February, I spent a month at UVic as a community fellow to bring together the insights and patterns which have been revealed during this time. This matters to me. It matters to me now. My focus in leadership and community development in many settings for a long time, it seems, is a commitment to serving, guiding transformation and change where I can, within my aspiration for a world that is transformed and works for all. My professional, personal, academic, community commitments revolve around inquiry and creating space into the role and significance of our whole selves in all our lives. I'm involved locally, and I have continuing active global commitments to the Warriors for the Human Spirit and the Presidency Institute. We see leaders, changemakers, and activists working harder in more demanding and stressful workplace and community conditions. Individuals and groups who feel limited and blocked in their efforts to shift prevailing social and community organizational norms. They bump up against, they confront a secular, dualistic, rationally oriented society. And they, like us, often turn to personal faith and community-based practices that heighten our capacity and provide a values-based orientation for systemic change. Is this the moment in time for us to tap into a deeper knowing, a deeper calling? I sense that the global collective consciousness is shifting, and this is a precious, a potent moment for us to step into, to step up and step beyond where we've been. What's shifting in that eternal, centuries-old human quest for what gives meaning and purpose to who we are? I'll suggest, based on what I notice, that there are three things that have really shifted. And they've shifted because we have an unprecedented global connectivity. Technology gives access as never before. And there are scientific breakthroughs and what I'm calling transcendent realities that are shifting our perspective and awareness. And so I sense and I suggest that we understand ourselves as part of a greater interconnected whole, part of living systems, the ecology. We've endangered Mother Earth, and we're present to the disruption, the collapse, and the destruction of much of what we've known. We are becoming guardians and protectors in the face of not only human extinction, but massive loss of diversity. And our interdependence, the value of our relationships that are the embedded context of who we are beyond the self and the individual, presencing the divides among us, the inequities of race, gender, place in the world, and many other factors. Also present to the love and the compassion that give meaning and guidance to the choices we make. And thirdly, I think there is an affinity for others that transcends the boundaries and the limiting beliefs that we've been part of. So the challenge, and it is a challenge, are we ready to listen to the call of those who are oppressed and needy? Are we ready to extend our reach, our lives, our political action, our social role, and our commitment to the planet in a way that we never have before? Noticing the uninterrupted inheritance of traditional Eastern and Indigenous traditions, the knowledge and capability of scientists, of thought leaders, of people with lived experience of all kinds. Are we ready for systems change, for global transformation? Through body, mind, heart, and soul, presencing the restorative aspects of our lives, the environment and our relatedness, seeking justice, the connection of the finite to the infinite. This time, I say, is calling for ingenuity, inventiveness, and generative perspectives in service to the world we're committed to. So rather than any thought of going back to normal, let's look ahead with boldness, deep awareness, and commitment to serve. Beyond talking and thinking about it, it means being with and coming from high levels of emotional and spiritual maturity and wisdom, risking and daring to lead, to serve where we can. It's an audacious and vital process of letting go of what we know, of control and certainty, inviting learning, discovery. Audacious, yes. Spirit and spirituality can't be defined in our minds, yet we all know it. Letting go, groundless and vulnerable. the way into the clarity of stepping into the unknown. This is, as some suggest, and I'm one of them, the moment we've been waiting for transformation, for integration, for convergence, for the longing for a just and sustainable earth to command our attention and our action, to wake up, face our privilege, recognize the inequities, to gather, to act, to shape the world we envision and are ready for. In a moment, you will be listening to the words, the patterns of meaning and understandings from 25 individuals with diverse worldviews and life experiences who live. They come from the integration of the secular and the spiritual, the sacred in their lives. This experience for each of us has been exquisite, intimate, revealing, and transformative. And I invite you to settle, to find a place of stillness and quiet and be open, to listen and pay attention to the felt sense, the wisdom that transcends the words and images that will be on the screen in just a moment. A space of wonder, inquiry, and reverence. So follow the sound into the silence for a moment as I share my screen and be ready to listen. We're betwixt and between, in a liminal space, complex, uncertain times calling for ingenuity and inventiveness. Invite you into a space that explores how the spiritual, the sacred, gives meaning, is integrated and expressed in daily lives of 25 people who shared their worldview as they lived it, moment by moment, in a space just to be, listening to, respecting each other, open and present to our whole selves and each other. These are their words, their insights, my sense making. Spirituality, the felt connection to something larger than each of us, being part of a whole that releases our authentic selves so we feel grounded, connecting body, heart, and mind, that expands and inspires us to live our values, to act, trusting in our grounding. We've witnessed the stories of healers, scholars, practitioners, musicians, scientists, a master gardener, a nun, a rabbi, a hospice nurse, an economist, a police officer, activists, educated, mature, open to exploring the deeper questions of why we are here and where we fit in the world. We met in circle, honoring principles of dialogue that afford an innate capacity to transform and inspire action, to help people hold the complexity and work through conflict, discovering new possibilities for collaboration and diversity. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. And Rumi and I invite you into a space to be in the flow, to be present beyond the words. What is revealed dwells in a space that's beyond language, understanding, and role, beyond our separateness, sharing our voice, our true nature, our place, the relatedness of our lives. It's sensing what is calling, creating connection and community. It's experienced as energy, essence, grounding, rooting, mystery. It's an imperative to act in the face of hopelessness. It's pushing against the current, deferring to the fish. How do we restore relationship with each other, the planet? How am I looking at life? What's my stance? Material elements are the starting point. Matter and energy are not separate. There's a uniqueness in our diversity. Diversity is key to our lives. We honor dissonance, noticing patterns of novelty and consistency. This is it. It matters. It's faith in nature. Spirituality is rooted in the land, the farm, trees, birds, stars in the country night sky. It's being with, being open to, allowing it, noticing it. It's the spirituality of Indigenous people. It's being with our fear, doubt, failure, loss, and suffering. It's being vulnerable, lonely, afraid, causing discomfort. It's coming back again and again with courage and persistence. It's seeing and sensing the deep belonging, the melding of the observed and the observer. It's not knowing, it's unknowing, it's energy. The universe just opened up possibilities and privileges for me. It uses me somehow. It's openness and intimacy, love, relatedness, family, dear ones. It's a conscious life, surrendering to the mystery. I trust its benevolence. It's an invitation. It's personal practices that engage me, that evolve with the environment around me. It's tapping into the stillness, silence, spaciousness through prayer, meditation, yoga, gardening, being in nature, creating stories, poetry, music, art, and it's intending to and being in service to a larger, bigger aspiration. It's seeking connections and trust, the divine in others. It is speaking the vision. It's supporting others to take risks. It's an emerging collective identity in community. It's living into a future that says this is the path. It's love, faith in people, emergence, serendipity, chance, planned crossings, energy. We are called to each other. We create a wake. It's a process of stepping forward and stepping back. How can we make it better? It's the path of authenticity. It's seeing ideological crises, injustice. It's stepping into the unknown, causing and creating. It's celebrating failure as learning. It's the revolution of systems change. We've noticed patterns, and the clarity of what matters brings freedom. Accepting the puzzle between what we know, what we don't know yet, knowing it's the right thing that gives us confidence. It's supporting and being supported by others who are taking risks. How do we restore relationships with each other, create conditions for learning and transformation, transform broken relations and systems, build resilience, reconcile, relinquish, restore, regenerate? Who do we choose to be? Spirit, a felt connection to something larger than each of us. Where do you and how does your spiritual worldview get expressed now? And how do you cultivate and nurture it? What does it contribute to your life and others? What are you committed to? So follow the sound again into the silence and take a minute to simply reflect on what you've experienced in the last few moments. The challenge, the possibility, the opportunity. Who do you choose to be? We'll be, in just a moment, experiencing the song Mystery, sung by the Gettin' Higher Choir in Victoria, BC, directed by Dick Jackson and his partner, Kathy Baker. Dick is the music director at Capital Unitarian Congregation in Victoria. Be well.
This next piece was written by Jeremy Geffen for part of the Missa Gaia, the Mass for the Earth, which was Mass for the Earth, performed by the Paul Winter Consort. Mystery.
In the sea, of a tree, as
Thank you, Diana, for your presentation this morning. Our congregation thrives because of the commitment of many among us with the gifts of time, energy, and talent. Our tradition is also to share in yet another way by giving, as we are able, an offering for the good of this congregation and the world that we serve. We recognize that a number of members have already given through monthly or annual contributions to the congregation. If you would like to donate online, you can obtain a tax receipt at the end of the year. There are a series of announcements. We are delighted to honor the beginning of Pride festivities and also remind all that June the 12th is the night of remembrance for the Pulse massacre in 2016, when a security guard killed 49 people and wounded 53 others in a mass shooting inside Pulse, a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, the United States. Please send us a photo of yourself offering a flower, any flower, to be included in the flower communion for the June the 28th service. Email the photo to sundayservices@guelph-unitarians.com. Anyone interested in becoming an official member of the congregation at the flower communion service, please email Peter. This Tuesday, you're invited to participate in a discussion of the film Atheism 2.0 with Lisa and Martha by Zoom at 3 p.m. See the website for the link. I also invite you to join us next week, June the 14th, when Peter Bellata will be speaking to us about our mutual relatedness. The following closing words are titled Search for Spirituality. A garland of surprises, a halo of multicolored energies, the antidote to the insane permanence of plastics, the earth's thinning cornea. This force so strong it cracks asphalt to offer us its greenings, blossom and occasional flower, pale and silvery. Its power so inviting, it cracks open our rock-hard hearts, melds its dissected chambers into one unifying pulse. Beyond our unique stories, we co-share a consciousness with all living beings and with the earth itself, unfolding, togethering to embrace the whisper of divine grace. To extinguish the chalice, I've chosen number 434 in the Unitarian Songbook. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. I want to thank you, Diana, for the work that you are doing and for your thought-provoking presentation this morning. I also want to thank Mel Horvath-Lucid for reading the story for all ages, Mike Craig for technical assistance, and to Martha and John Savage for their support in preparing this service. After the service, there will be an opportunity to meet virtually with Diana to discuss the ideas and perspectives discerned in her reflections today. We will meet via Zoom at 11:30 for a question and answer conversation, and at 12 o'clock, Diana will lead a virtual dialogue about the challenges posed in the reflections this morning. Thank you for being here this morning.